does that mean, do you believe that your sister, because she's a girl, can't do what you as a man can do? And I think I find that kind of thinking deeply disturbing in the 21st century. He's a 41-year-old man, and he just now I think the guy is just deeply misogynistic. Girl is savage. She hides her savageness behind her humor and her constant joke. And when I say savage, I mean in the nicest way. That girl is the calmest I've seen any contestant be in the middle of a task. And that is the greatest attribute you can have when you're competing on shows like this, is to stay calm when things are not going well for you. I've left now. I'm the mastermind that's left, right? Now the real masterminds are going to come out and the shit is going to hit the fan. Trust me, people are going to eat each other up alive after I've left. And
Well,
that's my prediction. Watch the show and you see what happens.
all right, so Nikhil, it's very surreal because I've been watching you over the screen, like competing over the last few weeks, and to see you here with me for an interview, it feels very, very bizarre. But as bizarre it is for us, I'm sure it has been absolutely a gamut of emotions for you as well. So, warm welcome to you firstly on Filme Shilmy, and thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Anuj. And it's really nice to hear that you've been watching the show and you've enjoyed it. And as far as gamut of emotions go, I think the main emotion is humor. I've laughed a lot at everybody's reactions on the show and my own reactions as well. Because sometimes being on the show for me has been like I'm watching the show while being on the show. And it's been quite funny for myself as an experience.
Right. Now look, Nikhil, I mean you've had your fair share of participating in reality shows. You've been a part of some really prominent ones as well. I think what would you say kind of made this experience of Alliance, besides the format, very distinct in terms of perhaps the way the show's been, the way you've been on the show, how would you say it's been different?
So here's the thing, Anuj. I don't watch a lot of television. I don't watch a lot of cinema either. In fact, when Seema walked into the house, I had to ask Arslan who she was because I didn't know that she'd done this TV show, some Hollywood,
Fabulous
Bollywood
life,
wives. Yeah,
fabulous
whatever.
life.
So
Yeah.
I don't. And then, when the guys would be talking about, Salman's movies and Sohail's movies, I had no idea what these movies were. And then when Minnie found out that I haven't hadn't watched a movie called Bajrangi Bhaijaan, which of course I've seen the posters for, she was appalled because apparently it was a very good movie and her husband made it. I had no idea her husband made it. So I don't really watch a lot of cinema. I don't watch a lot of television, so I don't really have some a metric to compare this against. But I knew for a fact that if this was going to be a show where a lot of people yelled at each other and there were kitchen politics, I did not want to do it. And the reason I agreed to do it was for the format. And I think they executed it brilliantly. I was fascinated with the detailing on some of the challenges and the tasks, the way they built them and the way they executed them. It was amazing. And of course, the headquarters itself, it was a wonderful living space. We had a really good time being there and, of course, competing with each other. And as the nature of all reality shows goes that have eliminations, somebody got to get eliminated. This time it was me.
Right. It's interesting you said that because I feel like it's interesting because the sort of mix that the show has, there's a lot of conversations online, and I don't know if you've seen them or had a chance to see them, but obviously I think a lot of people have felt like, for example, the TV or the film talents versus the content creators. There seems to be that divide in the show. There's been a few people in the show that have seemed to have displayed a form of bullying behavior as well. It's good that, in a way that you have mentioned and acknowledged it. But what is your opinion on this divide and the sort of behaviors that certain people who have been in this industry for a while that they're displaying towards the younger, let's say, contestants on the show?
I don't think age was the divider in this case. If you look at any reality show, you generally end up with a group of people separating themselves or aligning themselves into two camps. That always happens. It happens at Splitsvilla, happens in Roadies. I think it probably happens on Big Boss as well. And you generally gravitate towards one of those two camps.
Mm.
Someone like me actually didn't gravitate towards either or couldn't because I don't really belong to the TV or the film fraternity, nor am I a creator of sorts. So I was hovering somewhere in between, but I did lean more towards the older generation, so to speak, which tended to be the TV and the film fraternity. So that divide is actually quite normal and natural when it comes to putting a group of people together, getting them to compete against each other, adding an element of eliminations or vote outs. So people are forced to kind of assign loyalties to either camp. So that was very normal. As far as the bullying goes, I think I used to think that this was Kushal's tactic, that you're going to come across as being aggressive and like, hey, I'm going to get you, I'm going to take you out, and that'll scare people, it'll throw them off their game. In fact, I did do a bit of sort of intimidation in one of the games, and then I immediately stopped because we this was a game where there was the museum heist. I think it was the museum heist.
Mm.
And we had an agreement that three alliances were going to target one alliance so that the three that were doing the targeting, we wouldn't end up at the bottom of the tracker because you know what happens when you get to the bottom of the tracker. You
Cool.
have to nominate somebody to go on the list. So he said,
Yeah.
listen, the three of us, we don't want to be on the bottom. Let's put them on the bottom, right? Just before we started the task, one of the alliances said, oh no, we're not going to target them, we're going to target you. And as soon as they said that, my natural competitive instinct took over. Like I'm now in Roadies mode. I'm like, oh, you're coming for me. I'm going to come for you. And then you don't blame me for the consequences later. And when I said that, a couple of people really got scared. And later on, when we spoke about it, they were like, you're Nikhil, sir. When you spoke to us like that, we were like, whoa. And that's when I realized that I can't be that person because for many of them, I'm Nikhil, sir. And it made me feel really awkward because for me, it's game night with my friends at home. We're playing board games, and we're going to yell and scream at each other. But when that was said to me, I realized I can't yell and scream at these people because they look at me in a completely different light, and that would be completely unfair of me to do that. So I didn't do that as a tactic, but I can understand intimidation being used as a tactic. I can understand, oh, I'm weak and defenseless and I need protection being used as a tactic. I can understand, I don't want to play this game because I'm not confident. Why don't you play it? Putting somebody else forward so that the spotlight goes on them. And if you lose, the blame goes on them and you kind of stay away from the spotlight. That being used as a tactic. These are all different tactics that people used. Having said that, this week has come to light. I mean, today I found out that Kushal has a sister. I didn't know he had a sister. And on the show, he was crying and saying, I'm really upset because I'm the only one in my family. And if something happens to me, what will my family do? And I felt bad for him when he said that. I thought he was an only child. And I was like, firstly, bro, nothing's going to happen to you on the show. It's not that kind of a show. Secondly, I'm thinking, does this person actually think that his sister means nothing to their family? That he's the only one. And, oh, she's a girl, so she can't do anything. If something happens to me, hey. And I thought he was an only child. And now I'm like, you have a sister and you're crying about if something happens to me, who will look after my family? Does that mean, do you believe that your sister, because she's a girl, can't do what you as a man can do? And I think I find that kind of thinking deeply disturbing in the 21st century. He's a 41-year-old man, and he just now I think the guy is just deeply misogynistic.
Mm.
And I hope
Yeah.
I hope that some girl wins this show just for that point. Just for
Right.
that point. Because
Well, I hope that
here's a
happens.
guy who doesn't think his sisters is capable of taking care of their family in case something, God forbid, was to happen to him. Like,
And I
man,
think this
bro.
is what Dolly was trying to really say, I think when she was leaving. And to be honest, she wasn't wrong in a lot of things she was
Oh
saying. In fact, a
no.
lot of people were not wrong in about what they were saying, to be honest, on the show. But
I
yeah.
don't think so either. It's unfortunate, and I say this out blatantly, it's unfortunate that he's got the amount of airtime that he's been given. It's kind of like giving Donald Trump airtime, and I think they just wouldn't do that. We see that a lot in the media. Negative influences just get a lot of airtime because people are people
No, but you know what?
and they like to watch that stuff. Anyway,
No, but I
moving
must
on.
say though that it's quite disturbing. It is very disturbing because I think a lot of us in our lives have been bullied at one point in life, right? And we've all gone through, behavior. And I get it, it's a show, right? People are gonna have certain fierce demeanors. They're gonna be aggressive. But I think there's a slight difference between being aggressive on the show and then you actually it feels I don't know. I feel like there's a fine line, and I don't know, sometimes it does get crossed, I think. And I think that's why it does get quite disturbing to watch. But since you did mention that you would like a female to win, which I would as well, except for
Anuj,
me.
before you go ahead, can I just come back to your point of there being a fine line?
Yes, yes,
And I
please.
agree with you, but the person who draws that line has to be the individual. You have to be guided by your own moral compass.
Mm.
Because here are two people. I think that being intimidating is okay on a show, right? I personally think that. But in my case, on the show, when I was intimidating and somebody responded and said, hey, when and I took the call to not do that anymore because it would be unfair, right? Kushal has taken the call to continue to be intimidating. Yeah, and also part of his tactic on the show is to lie. He lied to me. He lies to everybody else. Lying is his way of getting ahead of the show. And Kunal has also clearly mentioned that there is nothing in anybody's contract. No makers have made any promises to anybody. No makers are engineering the show behind the scenes in one way or the other. But some contestants still choose not to believe Kunal. And that's to their sort of discredit that they aren't believing Kunal and they're saying, oh, maybe the makers really want something to happen.
No, absolutely. I think Kunal has hosted so fabulously. But look, on a final note, before we go
Amazing.
on, if I had more time, I would literally sing so much more praises of Kunal because I love the way he's done really good. But look,
He's been
on a,
cheeky. He's brought gravitas where there needs to be gravitas. He's been insightful, incisive, all of that, man. He's ticked every single
brilliant.
box as a
He's
host.
so good. No, 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 he's brilliant. All right, look, on a final note though, because I think we all have our favorites, right? But except for Minnie, because I think that would be a very easy answer for you to give, and I would like to know if except for Minnie, which other winner would you want of Alliance season one on Prime Video?
I think Ruhi.
Ah, okay.
I think Ruhi, because look, Ruhi is cheeky, and I think that girl is savage. She hides her savageness behind her humor and her constant joke. And when I say savage, I mean in the nicest way. That girl is the calmest I've seen any contestant be in the middle of a task. And that is the greatest attribute you can have when you're competing on shows like this, is to stay calm when things are not going well for you. And I think she's a terrific person. She is also someone who would never be my ally on the show because she leaned more towards the creator side and I was more on the other side. But I think as a contestant, as a competitor, I thought she was absolutely brilliant.
But I gotta give it though, the creators are giving very good tucker to the other
Yeah,
side. I have to
yeah.
say, I have to. When Vanshich
It's
came back,
but
I was
it's
like,
kind of
here we
like
go.
this focus on if you're able to bring the brashness of the younger generation and the experience of the older generation together, imagine what you could do. And I think when you see the younger generation, when you see Vansh sort of respond and say a few things, and you realize, well, maybe he doesn't have the years on him to have the experience, and he would be different in 5 years' time. And then you see the older generation doing things and saying, oh, they don't have the courage to do what the younger kids are doing because they're just too measured in their approach and they're too cautious. And you kind of wish you could bring those two worlds together in real life and see what
Mm.
you could do with the planet.
It's fascinating and blood boiling at the same time. But on that
Yeah,
note, I'm gonna
very
keep my
entertaining.
BP. I'm gonna be keeping my BP in check because we've got more episodes to follow. But uh,
Ain't gonna happen. Anuj, I've left now. I'm the mastermind that's left, right? Now the real masterminds are gonna come out and the shit is gonna hit the fan. Trust me, people are gonna eat each other up alive after I've left. And
well,
that's my prediction. Watch the show and you see what happens.
be very interesting to see. But Nikhil Chinapa, thank you so much for joining me on Filme Shilmy. It's been great to have you. Thank you so much.
Lovely chatting with you too, man. Take it easy.
Bye bye.
Bye.